Welcome back to more Pikmin 2. Last time, we defeated the Titan Dweevil, rescued Louie, and retrieved the final treasures. This time, we're going to go over a few miscellaneous topics, starting with the Treasure Hoard. You've collected the Succulent series. Plunge into the juicy world of alien cuisine. You've collected the Nature's Candy series, avant-garde veggies for modern gourmets. You've collected the Paleontology series, who knows what beasts left these behind. You've collected the Ancient Secrets series. This old chunk will make romantics weep with joy. You've collected the Tortured Artist series. Everyone's inner artist will crave this set. You've collected the Space Love series. These designs transcend intergalactic cultural barriers. You've collected the Dream series. Consumers hear the word dream and open their wallets. You got the Blast from the Past series. My nostalgic pitch will transform these oldies into hits. You've collected the Massive Receptacle series. Hocotations could practically live in these. You've collected the Ancient Ad series. These persuasive logos are amazing attention grabbers. You've collected the Odd Logo series. Indecipherable symbols are all the rage these days. You got the Titan Dweevil series. Entomologists and film directors will buy them by the whole load. So this is a complete list of all of the treasures we found. You might have noticed that we didn't see every series name, and it basically will only show the name the first time you enter the treasure hoard after completing that set. So like this set, we didn't actually see the overall series name because we didn't check the treasure hoard between every day, essentially. Which is kind of a shame. I was kind of hoping it would show all of them, to be honest. But yeah, it's actually kind of neat being able to see everything we've collected. There are a couple options here. You can press up and down on the D-pad to zoom in and out. And you can also hold Z and use the control stick to rotate. You also might notice that the background for all of these treasures is the Wistful Wild. I'm pretty sure it basically picks the last area you've been to as the backdrop for the treasure hoard. There's actually a lot of trivia about the treasures, but first of all, let's scroll down to the Titan Dweevil series because we have two options. We have Olimar's Journal, which is unlocked by default as soon as you collect the treasure. You can find Olimar's notes. Once you complete a series, you can also hear the sales pitch by the ship. So let's check both for the King of Bugs. Louie is back. Somehow, he survived a horrific ordeal with a freakishly large, weapon-wielding Titan Dweevil. I entered a hole with an army of ferocious Pikmin grimly determined to save Louie from the Titan Dweevil, but it seems that he was perfectly fine all along. I can't understand how he managed to avoid being eaten. He's always had an unusually close connection with insects, and I know he loves to cook them. Maybe he wasn't kidnapped after all. Could he have been controlling that beast all along? No, that's craziness. Although, he does insist now that we address him by his proper title, the King of Bugs. A new employee of Hokotate Freight, Louie is often silent. Nobody knows what what thoughts lurk in his mind. He appears to operate on the same wavelength as insects, often with dangerous results. After he was kidnapped, he somehow managed to hijack a colossal insect's brain. So, you get less objective takes from the ship because it's trying to sell products. So, for example, it's trying to hype up Louis as being able to control insects, while Olimar is merely speculating that Louis might have some connection to the Titan Dweevil, and that trend kind of holds for a lot of the other treasures, where Olimar has very, factual notes about the treasures, while the ship will just make up various traits for some of them. One other one I wanted to highlight was the one shell we found in the Awakening Wood. This one? Yeah, this one. A fossil of an ancient sea inhabitant. It is most desirable despite its unappealing name. Captain Olimar named it without consulting anyone. He could have at least named it after his faithful spaceship. So yeah, this was named after Olimar, and he didn't ask anyone else for their feedback on that, which is actually unusual because I thought the ship named most of the treasures, but I guess that's kind of like the one exception. So, in addition to all of these treasures, in this version of the game, there's actually a whole set of other treasures that are exclusive to other regions, and treasures that have actually been changed between regions in terms of locations and names, even though the actual treasure is still intact. So first of all, a couple treasures were changed slightly. For example, the Decorative Goo, Master's Instrument, and the Flame of Tomorrow were all they basically had kanji on them. And for the North American and PAL versions of the game, they were given Mario branding. You also have the Arboreal Frippery, which is a red maple leaf in the European version, but is green in both the North American and Japanese version of the game. So yeah, you have some aesthetic changes. You also have some treasures that are replacements, but essentially serve the same roles. So if we go over to the battery set, in the Western versions, these are all Duracell batteries. In the Japanese version, they're actually a brand known as National High Top. But they're still batteries and serve the same role. But there's actually an additional battery that can be found in place of one of the other treasures, the Thirst Activator in the Subterranean Complex. Which that same treasure in the PAL version of the game is actually the Endless Repository. But with a different name, the Perfect Container. So, there's a lot of interesting localization changes. Some definitely make sense, replacing text and replacing brands that wouldn't be as relevant internationally, but some of the treasures were simply renamed or relocated in ways that are actually kind of fascinating. The Stringent Container is another good example of this, where it is actually known as the Open Architecture in the PAL version, and in both the PAL version and Japanese versions of the game, it's actually located where the Patience Tester is in the Citadel of Spiders, instead of being located, I'm pretty sure in the Dream Den. So yeah, a lot of things were relocated or rebranded entirely. There's actually an entire series of products that is exclusive to the Japanese version. Basically, they have milk bottles with collectible covers on the top of the bottle. So 14 of the treasures are different milk bottle covers. But because that's specific, a specific thing in Japan, obviously a lot of treasures were replaced internationally with more recognizable brands. I'm pretty sure a lot of these items, some of these brands were actually examples of this. I'm pretty sure the Gherkin Gate is one. I want to say the Saliva Tricks is another. It might be something else, though. There are a couple other, like, miscellaneous, like, Japanese-themed items that, like, are specific brands that aren't, like, milk covers. But yeah, a lot of them are, because it's, like, 14, and they're a whole set. And yeah, a lot of treasures were actually relocated, and one really weird quirk is that one treasure was actually relocated between this version, or the GameCube version, and this version. The two treasures that were swapped, if I can find it, were they're actually both in the Glutton's kitchen, if I'm not mistaken. The massive lid and the happiness emblem are basically, they're both found in the Glutton's kitchen, but they're on, like, they switch places. Like, they're both, like, you know, bottle caps worth 100 Pokos. It's, like, not a big switch, but it's still very fascinating to me that they would actually just move two treasures between the GameCube and Wii versions of the game. I'm not sure why they did that, to be honest. So yeah, it is a very fascinating game in terms of localization because of how many brands are present. And yeah, it's also just weird to me how you do have treasures that are like in all versions of the game, but are located in different places and like essentially like in place of other treasures. It's, yeah, very fascinating. So yeah, that's a very quick overview of the Treasure Hoard. I didn't feel like reading all of the descriptions because there's 202 treasures, or 201 treasures, meaning there would be 402 descriptions in total, and we would be here for a very long time. So let's move on to the Piklopedia. So this is a complete list of all of the enemies we fought, with some exceptions, some things you don't actually fight. With the flora of the planet, you basically have to like brush past a lot of this. I've actually gone full playthroughs where I've missed these because I'm not like bumping into a specific type of plant. So that can be very specific. Also, I'm pretty sure there are cases where like certain plants are actually in multiple regions, but like not like in certain, like the winter area, the Valley of Repose, you might be able to find something, or in the Wistful Wild, you might be able to find a plant, but it's kind of withering because of the season, and that one wouldn't count. It's only like the healthy version that counts in some cases for these plants. So we have basically two options here as well. We have Olimar's notes and Louie's notes. So let's go to the Titan Dweevil as an example of this at the very bottom of this list. Titan Dweevil, Mandarachnia gargantium, Dweevil family. The largest member of the Dweevil family, this fearsome predator carries protective components that frequently exhibit offensive capabilities, an evolution that may be attributed to mere chance. Another evolutionary theory is that the chemical contents of the containers carried by Titan Dweevils contribute to possible gene splicing. While other Dweevils do not seem to choose the objects they carry, the Titan Dweevil appears to prefer shiny objects above all others. Eaten raw, this predator's luxurious legs are bold and full-flavored. What a satisfying crunch. So Olimar will give very detailed descriptions of like the biology of the various enemies. Louie will talk about cooking them, which is a nice bit of contrast. Also in this mode, if you press A, actually in both modes this works, if you press A you can actually zoom in, but in addition to that, in the Piklopedia, you can also throw pick-pick carrots to basically see how enemies attack. So that's a cool feature. For example, let's go over to an enemy that will actually attack Pikmin, like a Wollywog. Yeah, we can basically... Actually, this doesn't work because they can't land in water. Let's go here. So yeah, we can basically toss carrots to lure the enemy out and see how it attacks. Another option is you can actually press 1 to use a bitter spray. This actually has some very interesting properties. For example, like, if you go over to the Water Wraith, you can actually kind of like freeze it. You can actually freeze its rollers separately from the Water Wraith itself, which is very interesting, and you can actually end up with a situation where it basically can't move and kind of gets stuck like this. Also, this is a very fascinating description. Water Wraith, Amphibio sapiens, unknown family. All that is known about this creature stems from a few sightings deep underground. All reported sightings feature the same core set of details, a giant viscous form with a clear hazy sheen, not unlike hard candy. One theory holds that it may be the ectoplasmic incarnation of a kind of psychic phenomenon, but as is usually the case with such theories, it is very difficult to prove. All witnesses report being suddenly overcome with fear upon sighting the creature, approaching a state of panic and near insanity. In fact, every report contains an inordinate amount of extremely vague details, which has led to suspicions that exhaustion and fear have caused some simple natural phenomenon to be viewed as a living creature. Inedible, known to cause mass hysteria followed by leg spasms and internal thunderings. The very fascinating thing about a lot of these notes is, one, Olimar's description of it causing a state of panic is very apt, and two, a lot of Louis' descriptions actually make no sense because when we first saw the Water Wraith, the ship said that it seems to be some being tethered to another dimension, and that's why we aren't able to attack it right away. It also disappears as soon as you defeat it, raising the question of how did Louis taste it and find out that it's an inedible? And this goes for a lot of the enemies as well, like the Titan Weevil is one. It disappears when you defeat it. So yeah, it does create some interesting, like, questions of like, yeah, how does Louis actually know what all these taste like? In addition to that, I wanted to mention a couple other funny descriptions really quickly. One is the Candy Pop Buds, by the way. Again, to actually register these, you have to toss 1 Pikmin into each Candy Pop Bud. You don't have to toss 5, which would cause it to wither. Only 1 is needed. This flower's tough texture makes it unsuitable for salads, but its bright blue hue makes for a grandiose garnish. So yeah, Louis has a wide range of like cooking tips for each of the items. Another one of my favorites is actually the Caustic Dweevil over here, which we only actually added after the Dream Den. Inedible. Effects of consumption include uncontrollable arm flailing and enthusiastic dishwashing. I do feel like Pikmin 2 as a game definitely excels because of its like charm, and I do feel like the Treasure Hoard and Piklopedia descriptions really help to accentuate a lot of the charming writing of this series, especially since a lot of the end-of-day logs, actually there are no end-of-day logs, and instead we get emails from different characters. So yeah, there's a lot of charm in a lot of these descriptions. By the way, I also wanted to highlight these enemies. The Wollywog line is actually renamed in Europe, the Wally Hop, and I think this is like, I don't remember what this one's called, but this one is also renamed, because of it being close to a very offensive term in the UK, if I'm not mistaken. So yeah, these are actually renamed starting with the new Play Control versions. I want to say in the Wii version of Pikmin 1 in North America, these also might have been called Wally Hops, but I actually don't remember if that's true or not. So yeah, there's a ton here. Again, I'm not going to go over everything because we would be here all day, but I just wanted to highlight both. So let's head back to the main menu. I also wanted to highlight a few more things about the main adventure that we will not be seeing because it would actually be slightly ridiculous to show this off. I've talked about it a little bit, but certain enemies only show up after certain days. So for example, starting on day 11, you have to deal with male shear grubs by the bridge near the half of the globe, so that they'll destroy the bridge. So that's why I do recommend clearing out the Awakening Wood quickly to avoid having to rebuild that bridge, basically. In the Perplexing Pool, this is the most interesting one. A lot of enemies start to spawn late. So first of all, day 11, you actually have to deal with dwarf ball bears. I'm pretty sure they appear near the entrance to the Citadel of Spiders. So that's not too bad. But starting on day 31, a spotty ball bear will appear in the Perplexing Pool, and right by the starting area, right by the landing site, there will be, and I'm not kidding, a beady longlegs. As a kid, I actually did play the game a lot. My first playthrough took me a long time, so I actually did go past that point, and I do remember a specific moment where I go to the Perplexing Pool, and a beady longlegs falls, and it is, like, extremely unexpected, to be honest. So yeah, the Perplexing Pool gets very dangerous, but you have to play until day 31 to actually see it, so it's unlikely that you'll see it unless you're trying to go for like high scores, like growing Pikmin, and just maxing out the treasure counter using like enemies in the underground. But yeah, it is interesting that rare enemies do appear on the above ground if you spend a certain amount of time. There's also a very remote enemy. This enemy is actually not even in the Piklopedia. There's an enemy whose Japanese name roughly translates to swarm mite. It will appear, a swarm of these little tiny mites will appear near the entrances to the Dream Den and Hole of Heroes, and basically are poisonous, but if you defeat them, they will drop a ton of sprays and nectar. So if you want to build up your spray count, that's a very quick way to do it, but unfortunately, they only appear starting on day 31, and also won't only appear every 30 days, so days 31, 61, and 91, if I'm not mistaken. The Japanese name of these is the Ujidani. The only reason we know about this is actually, in Japan, this game actually had bonus minigames using the e-reader. So there were e-reader cards for Pikmin 2. Different cards would unlock different, like, sets of levels for 3 types of minigames, and one of the cards is of the swarm mites. Again, that's like a literal translation of the Japanese name. So yeah, that's like the only reason we know what these are called, which is very fascinating. But by this point, the e-reader was effectively, like, canned internationally. It was still, like, somewhat popular in Japan, but, like, it was pretty much done in North America. So we never got any of the e-reader features for the Western release of Pikmin 2, unfortunately. So yeah, that is a quick overview. Never mind, there's one more thing I wanted to quickly highlight, the mail system. So at the end of every day, you get mail from, at first, the president trying to get you to collect the debt faster. There's actually a ton of messages we never saw. I'll try to remember to link to a lot of resources in the description of this video of, like, the mail, like maybe different, like, treasure descriptions, regional differences, and so on. But there's a ton of mail messages we never saw. Like, if you take too long, the president literally gets captured by debt collectors and is being held hostage until you actually pay off the debt. There's actually specific messages for different ranges of debt paid off. After paying the debt, there's actually a set of messages for paying off the debt, and there's a set of messages for rescuing Louis without collecting every treasure. So it's actually very possible to miss a lot of the messages, which is why I want to link them in the description below. A lot of them are very fascinating and help to kind of develop a lot of the supporting cast, like the families of the president, Olimar, and Louis. And it's actually really nice in the case of, like, Olimar, for example, because we heard a lot about his family in Pikmin 1, so to actually have, like, direct interaction, or more like indirect interaction in this case, with Olimar's family kind of helps to kind of provide more perspective on what Olimar mentioned in Pikmin 1's notes. So yeah, in general, I do recommend reading through all of the mail just because a lot of the messages are very interesting, and very remote because of just how unlikely it is that you'll end up like spending this many days between each cycle, like, you know, spending multiple days between, like, you know, 4,000 to 5,000 Pokos paid off. That just feels super unrealistic, so I have a feeling a lot of people have never seen these messages. But with that, I think that's just about everything I wanted to talk about with the main story. Next up, I wanted to quickly highlight the 2-player battle mode. This game does have a versus mode, where you basically go through these little underground caverns and try to collect, actually there's a rules option. When condition 1, get 4 yellow marbles. When condition 2, get your foe's marble. Get a cherry, spin the roulette. So basically, there are multiple yellow marbles. If you're the first to collect 4, you win. There's also a specific marble, a red marble for Olimar, and a blue marble for Louie, and these are at their respective onions. And if you can basically take the opposite captain's marble, you automatically win. You also have the Cupid's Grenade item from the main game. In this case, cherry is just what they're calling it. And it gives you an option to spin a roulette to get a bunch of effects like, you know, getting more Pikmin, becoming invisible, recovering your marble, if they move it part way, you know, dropping a volatile Dweevil, and so on. So yeah, it's actually pretty elaborate. There was a ton of stages too, and also you can actually pick up bombs. If you run into a bomb with a captain, you can actually pick it up. I'm not going to show it off because I'm by myself, but I have definitely booted this up just with 2 controllers connected on the GameCube version just to see what it's like, and it actually seems pretty cool. You can also set handicaps. If you lose Pikmin, I'm pretty sure you'll automatically have a certain amount of Pikmin grow back, but you can also grow more Pikmin by collecting pellets or enemies like usual. The Pikmin can also attack each other and captains as well. And another win condition it did not specify is I'm pretty sure if you lose all your Pikmin at once, I think it might end automatically as well. One of my favorite details of this mode is the portraits of Olimar and Louie on the sides will get increasingly smug or sad depending on how the win ratio is. So like if one captain is really far ahead in terms of wins, they'll look really smug and the other captain will look really dejected. So yeah, again, there's a lot of charm in this game, even though some of the level design can definitely be very frustrating at times. But in general, I do feel like this would be a fun battle mode, even though I personally don't remember playing it very much. But yeah, I just wanted to quickly mention it. So, all that's left is the challenge mode. So yeah, our journey is far from over. We have, let's see, 5 by 6, so 30 challenges to get through. And I'll talk more about the conditions of winning all these challenges next time. So thank you for watching, and I hope you'll join me next time for more Pikmin 2.